All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful slogans in all of crypto. We're going to dig into what it really means and ask a pretty tough question. Could Bitcoin's greatest strength also be its biggest secret vulnerability? You've heard this a million times, right? It's on Twitter, it's in investor decks. It's that ultimate, cozy reassurance that the network is this impenetrable digital fortress. But here's the question that changes everything. What if the real danger isn't some super hacker trying to break down the front door? What if it's a tiny, almost invisible flaw, a logic error, hiding deep inside a routine software update? Okay, so to be fair, when people say never been hacked, they're not totally wrong. They're talking about something very specific. In its entire 16-year history, nobody has ever managed to crack Bitcoin's core cryptography, that super tough SHA-256 algorithm. And no one has ever successfully pulled off a 51% attack to rewrite history. That track record, it's seriously impressive. But, and this is a big but, that's not the whole story, not even close. And the little asterisks next to that perfect record are something every single investor needs to understand. And look, this isn't just some theory. The network has a history. There have been at least 3 major software bugs that brought Bitcoin dangerously close to, well, breaking. Each one of them is like a little breadcrumb, telling us exactly where the real vulnerabilities are hiding. Take a look at this number, 184 billion. Back in 2010, a software bug let someone create 184 billion Bitcoin in a single transaction. Just poof, out of thin air. Now, to put that in perspective, that is almost 9,000 times the total amount of Bitcoin that's ever supposed to exist. So how on earth did that happen? Well, the code simply wasn't checking its math for really, really big numbers. An attacker basically broke the system's calculator, and this insane number somehow looked valid. Luckily, developers spotted it almost immediately. They pushed out a patch, and then they had to coordinate with all the miners to literally rewind the blockchain and wipe those fake coins from existence. Fast forward 3 years, and disaster strikes again. But this time, it wasn't a malicious attack. It was triggered by a totally normal, well-meaning software update. It's a perfect example of how even trying to make things better can have dangerous, unintended consequences. Okay, so here's the simple version of what went down. The new software update had this hidden glitch, an incompatibility with the older version. It's kind of like trying to open a new Photoshop file on a computer running Windows 95. It just can't read it right. So when a big block of transactions came through, the new computers said, yep, looks good, but all the old ones just rejected it. And the result was pure chaos. For hours, there were basically 2 separate Bitcoin networks running at the same time, each with its own version of the truth. Fixing it required a massive emergency response. Developers had to get on the phone, or, the internet equivalent, and convince all the big mining pools to downgrade their software back to the old version just to force the 2 chains to merge back together. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but that was all in the early Wild West days of Bitcoin. Well, think again. In 2018, another absolutely critical bug was found, and this one had been hiding live on the network for almost an entire year before a single person noticed. This was the infamous inflation bug. A tiny code change in 2017 accidentally deleted a super important line that checks for double spending. It's like being able to go to a coffee shop, pay with a $20 bill, and then go next door and pay for lunch with that exact same $20 bill. A clever miner could have used this to just print new Bitcoin for themselves endlessly. The good news? No one ever exploited it. Phew. The bug was found by developers doing really rigorous testing, code reviews, and this cool thing called fuzz testing, which is basically just throwing millions of random pieces of garbage data at the software to see if anything breaks. It's a testament to the strength of the developer community, but it's also a scary reminder of how easy it is for human error to creep in. And all this kind of leads us to a really common myth about Bitcoin. The idea that the code is set in stone, that it's this perfectly automated system that just runs itself. The reality? It's just not like that. The software is a living thing, constantly being updated. I mean, just look at the release schedule for Bitcoin Core, which is the main software pretty much everyone uses. We're talking 1 or 2 major new versions every single year. And every one of these updates changes the code that actually defines the rules of Bitcoin. So who's making these changes? It's not some decentralized AI. It's a small, publicly known group of core developers who have the keys, so to speak, to merge new code on GitHub. Now, don't get me wrong. Every little change is intensely scrutinized by other developers, and any big upgrade needs buy-in from the whole ecosystem. But you have to remember this one crucial point. Bitcoin's rules are enforced by software, but that software is written and updated by people. Let's look at something more recent. This one isn't a bug, but it's an unintended consequence that nobody saw coming. I'm talking about Bitcoin NFTs, or Ordinals. They popped into existence because of the 2021 Taproot upgrade, and they've created a whole new set of headaches. See, Taproot was meant to improve privacy and smart contracts, but people figured out they could use it to cram data, like JPEGs, directly onto the blockchain. This caused network fees to skyrocket and led to massive congestion. But more than that, it sparked this huge philosophical debate among developers about whether they should even try to filter these transactions. And that brings up some really tricky questions about censorship. Okay, so we've looked at old bugs, constant updates, and weird new exploits. So what does this all mean for you if you're actually holding Bitcoin? What's the real risk here? Here's the bottom line. The biggest threat to Bitcoin today isn't some hacker in a dark room trying to brute force the network. It's the small but very real possibility that a hidden flaw, a simple logic mistake introduced in a totally well-meaning software update could suddenly send the whole thing into chaos. Think about it. In a market this big, if a new, serious bug were discovered tomorrow, it could trigger a tidal wave of short selling and absolute panic. I mean, we all saw what happened with things like Luna and FTX. A massive price crash isn't just a possibility, it's honestly pretty plausible. And this all leads to the real takeaway. Security in a system like Bitcoin isn't absolute, it's probabilistic. That just means it's not about being 100% perfect forever, it's about being so unbelievably strong that the probability of it failing is vanishingly small. But knowing that these software risks exist, even if they're tiny, is what separates a blind belief in a slogan from a truly informed investment. And that leaves us with one last big question. The very code that makes Bitcoin so amazing, so transparent and rule-based, is also the source of its most complex and human risks. So, is Bitcoin's code its greatest strength, or could it also be its greatest weakness?